Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. The city of Chattanooga is rolling out or has rolled out a 2.5 gig symmetrical fiber service. Be right back with more. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Zquorum. So, City of Chattanooga, also known as EPB, Electric Power Board in Chattanooga. That's what they started as, was basically electric utility. But they have always been an innovator as far as providing broadband service to the city of Chattanooga. So back in 2010 or so, they were the first to come out with a gig internet service, becoming a gig city, and kind of laid the groundwork for others to follow. And then in 2015, they came out with a 10 gig service. Last year, 2022, they started offering a 25 gig service just to increase the wow factor. Not priced where most people or anybody would get it, maybe a really large business, but now they have come out with a 2.5 gig, which is priced a little bit more reasonably, where it could be something that maybe a residential customer would want if for some reason the gig is not fast enough for them for some reason. So anyway, I thought I'd talk about this real quickly and just look at and see what others are doing, like Google and Comcast now that they've got DOCSIS 4.0 in some areas. So you see here, EPB debuts 2.5 gig internet tier, advances quantum network. Won't be talking about the quantum network today. I did want to talk about, and maybe touch on it, but I did want to talk about what they're doing here with internet. So you see here, they've rolled out a 2.5 gig residential internet service, adding another symmetrical speed tier on its fiber optic network in Chattanooga, Tennessee. 2.5 gig service includes the installation of their Wi-Fi 6E router. So the 6E will allow them to take advantage of these higher speeds, getting 6E being the 6 gigahertz band and Wi-Fi 6 being the 6th iteration of Wi-Fi, but they get that higher level band so they can do faster throughput within their home. So it doesn't do you any good if you've got, let's say, a 2.5 gig coming to your home, but your Wi-Fi can't support that. So this will be something that will help them support that. And again, this is available for under $100, $97.99 per month. So that's reasonably priced. We consider a lot of gig plans from somebody like maybe an AT&T is $80 a month. So it's only like almost $20 more, or less. It's less than $20 more, I should say, put it that way. This VP, Katie Espeseth, said they're committed to maximizing options on its network with service up to 25 gigs. So they do offer that 25 gig service. So again, they were known immediately as they came out with citywide GPON service, gig symmetrical, as an innovator in the industry. And then, Google Fiber came out, and other cities and other fiber operators started trying to duplicate that. And they keep trying to lead the pack here, including this 25 gig, even if nobody wants to necessarily get that because it's expensive. High bandwidth applications are here to stay, and that's true. As a city-owned provider, EPB turned up 1 gig service for Chattanooga in 2010, followed by 10 gig in 2015 and 2022, the 25 gig service. And all this is leveraging Nokia's 25 gig PON technology. And by the way, if you're watching this and you want to know more about Nokia and their fiber technology, you'll see our contact info at the end here. Zquorum.com. Just reach out to us and we'll help you with that because we are a Nokia partner and can work with you on that. So, and it claimed to be the first in the country to launch such an offering community-wide. The 25 gig service carries a steep price tag at about $1,500 per month. So again, that's kind of a wow factor. If you're a really ultra-large business and let's say 2.5 gig isn't enough for you, or we'll see the options that they have here in a minute. I'll go to the EPB site, but in most cases, companies, even certainly residences, but companies don't need this much. But this one, being the new service at 2.5 gig at under $100, is something that some who want to have the best internet on their block and don't want to pay $1,500 to do it, might go ahead and get. In an interview with Fierce in May, Chattanooga Mayor Tim Kelly noted the role local utility and broadband provider EPB has played in enhancing broadband access, adding it also helps that we're sitting on a key node, obviously for fiber in the eastern U.S. While Chattanooga has been ahead of the game with multi-gig connectivity, other providers are catching up. Mentioned here, Google in October announced its plans for a rollout of a symmetrical 20 gig service for residential and business customers by the end of this year. Google Fiber will also tap into Nokia's 25G PON system to make the service a reality. And again, one of the nice things about that 25 gig PON is that You can put that out there, but you don't have to, it's not like you have to say, okay, we're going to buy all this extra equipment and everybody's going to have access to 25 gig. You can put in those OLTs, in those chassis, you can put gigabit PON, you can put just gig PON or GPON. You can put XGS PON, the 10 gig cards, or you can put a 25 gig card in there. So if you have one customer that wants 25 gig, you can put a card in there for them and serve them and not have to have that for everybody. But it's that way you have one piece of equipment that can serve all of these different speeds. That's a nice feature there. EPB quantum network developments. We'll talk a little bit about this. I did a Tech Tuesday, I think it was last week, I believe, on the announcement from IBM on quantum computing. So IBM has hit a threshold on quantum computing now where pretty much they can do with a quantum computer about as well or even better than what you can do with what they call a classical traditional computer doing quantum simulations. So in other words, quantum now is getting to a point where it's going to be applied to new problems and solving new things. So I did a Tech Tuesday about that. And quantum networking kind of would go hand in hand with that. So you've got quantum computing, and then quantum networking would be so that you can connect these quantum computers so they can all talk to each other, kind of like a quantum network, quantum internet, so to speak. Although it's not like the old internet's going to go away. We'll still have classical computing, and we'll still have the classical traditional internet, and we will have quantum computing. We'll have a quantum network for these quantum computers to be able to talk back and forth to each other. So it says here they've made some strides in its quantum network. For one, the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga became the first academic institution to be connected to their quantum network this month. The company claimed this makes UTC the only university in the country with access to a managed commercial quantum network. I'm assuming that means they have access to a quantum computer as well, because why have a quantum network if you don't? EPB launched its quantum network in 2022, starting a new subscription model where developers can lease parts of the network to test their nascent quantum technology. So again, this quantum network is there so you can have people that are developing quantum computers and those kinds of technologies to be able to test how that works over a network. Their 9,000-mile community fiber optic network in Chattanooga is separate from the quantum network, which is specifically dedicated to working with companies that are proving out and commercializing their quantum tech. So I may go into quantum computing in another Tech Tuesday here soon and just kind of talk about, again, the difference of that versus quantum computing and how that all is going to work together. So it's a pretty interesting topic. So again, this is EPB, the city of Chattanooga, staying ahead of everyone else, trying to maintain that kind of leadership in what they're doing in their community. And they've had great success. So they've now got, what was it? I wrote it down somewhere. They've now got 130,000 subscribers approximately on their fiber optic network, and 47,000 approximately those are gig, or they call it their gig. I forget what they call it. They had a name for it. So I assume that means anybody that's a gig or over. So a good number of those are on the less expensive plans, because again, that's going to be more affordable for a lot of people. But I did want to look at their pricing here. You see, this is their site. And I linked to the article as well as this site and the Google Fiber site I'm going to be looking at here in a minute in the video description. So see here, they're talking about their fast internet, see what the world's fastest community-wide internet can do for you. And for one thing it can do is give you really fast internet at less than you'll pay from, let's say, a commercial provider, because this is, it's the city doing this. So it's treating it somewhat as a utility. They don't have to worry about making a profit like a private company. And a lot of private companies will say, well, that's not, they have an unfair advantage there. But cities are generally getting into this business when they have to right now. In other words, they have to because there's an incumbent provider that's not providing good service, or they're not providing service to all areas in the city. So they say, well, if you're not going to upgrade your technology to give us, let's say, gig service or better, or okay, you've got technology, gig service in some areas, but in other areas you're just leaving them behind because there's not a good return on your investment. We understand that, but we're going to go ahead and build it out because we're not so much worried about the ROI. We're more worried about our community. So for right now, I think cities getting into the business tend to be addressing a problem where there's not good internet either throughout the city or in parts of the city, because otherwise it's difficult for them, because then if you've got an incumbent provider that's already providing internet at a, let's say, gig internet pretty much everywhere, then the city's going to be in competition with them. And the city, in order to be able to cover their costs at the very least, need to get a good number of subscribers. And if you've got a private company you're battling out with, then that makes it a little harder, even if you can come in at a little bit lower price. And the lower your price that you come in, then the harder it is to make back the money that you put into the network, even if you are a municipality. Whereas the incumbents already got the network built and they've got a little leverage there. So, but again, they were in the business since 2010. So they were providing gig internet when nobody was really even thinking about that. So they've had that in their bank. They banked that basically all these years. So here you see you can choose your plans. So 300 meg, $57 or basically $58 a month. You can get a gig for $68 a month, $67.99. So again, you can compare that to most places. It's going to be $80 or more to get a gig symmetrical. And all of these, fiber is going to be symmetrical. When you get a fiber connection these days, it's going to be 100 by 100 or 300 by 300 or gig by gig, et cetera. Then they've got the new plan, the 2.5 symmetrical for $98 a month, basically. 10 gig for $300 a month. And here's where it's getting into out of the residential realm. I don't know many residential subscribers that would get 10 gigs unless they're doing something in their home where they're hosting some kind of serious server that needs a lot of bandwidth. You certainly don't have a lot of people in the home that are going to need this kind of bandwidth. But if you got a large company, lots of people that are connecting, and plus servers, those kinds of things, maybe this would be an option for them. Although most companies, I think 2.5 gig would probably get by on that. Then you've got 25 gig for $1,500 a month. Not sure how many takers they have on that. That's very expensive for that. But we will see these prices come down because just like anything, as this becomes more prevalent, the prices come down. Maybe they will suddenly tell folks that, hey, you're getting a gig today for $68. Well, we're going to upgrade you to the 2.5 gig for $68. And then maybe they lower the price of the 10 gig to $125 or something like that. And these prices come down. So that is EPB. And then you've got Google Fiber out there. This is their Kansas City one. I looked at Atlanta as well. In Atlanta, we don't have the 5 gig option listed. And I don't even know if I have it in my area. I don't need it. I've got AT&T and I don't need Google Fiber. But Google Fiber is in some places in Atlanta. And you see here, they're selling 1 gig for $70. So that compared to the, 50? Whoops. Now I lost where I'm on that page. There we go. So the 1 gig here, $68 there with EPB versus 70 for Google. So it's very close with Google. And as I said, AT&T in my area is $80. Then Google has a 2 gig plan for $100. So it's not quite 2.5. And it's about the same price as the 2.5 from the city. So the city's kind of got them beat there. Although Google's not going to come into Chattanooga. They had no reason to. Then you've got their 5 gig plan for Google's $125 a month. So they're offering that plan as well. And again, for a residential customer, most people are going to be more than satisfied with 1 gig. These are going to be unusual here why somebody would need this. This could be a business. I don't know too many residential customers that are going to need 2 gig or 5 gigs, as I mentioned. So, and then, of course, you've got Comcast announced in some areas that they've got their DOCSIS 4.0 coming out in places such as Atlanta. I don't know if it's available here yet. It's available in some other places, I think, already. And that is providing, they've got a 2 gig plan, and their pricing on that, did I have that down? $115. So for their 2 gig product, Comcast, $115. So you can see that's $15 more than you've got here for Google Fiber. And it is about the same, 15, 16, what was it? I guess it's $17, I think, more than EPB. So Comcast is starting to compete in some of these areas, and that would be a symmetrical package from Comcast. So normally a cable operator, Comcast today in a lot of areas offers a 1.2 gig by 35 meg up, so it's much less on the upstream. But with DOCSIS 4.0, they can do a symmetrical. They're doing DOCSIS two-way, what's it called? DOCSIS full duplex. They're doing full duplex, enabled to get symmetrical speeds, and they can do this 2 gig symmetrical. Again, their price $115 for Comcast, and that's using their traditional cable modem architecture. They just have upgraded some things to DOCSIS 4.0, and you'll need a DOCSIS 4.0 modem to do that as well from Comcast. But that way, they don't need to upgrade to fiber in these areas, and they can compete very well. In fact, where they're doing 1.2 by 35 meg up, they're competing very well. Most people, 35 meg doesn't sound like a lot on the upstream, but most people don't need a lot on the upstream. And 35 meg is plenty for most people to be able to do stuff. Now, obviously, if you are, at certain times you want to upload a bunch of photographs, those kinds of things, and it's going 35 meg versus a gig or more, you might notice that. But most of the time, you don't notice that. So most people, they don't, unless they are looking at it as, wow, it's another wow factor. It's a feature. Well, I can get gig symmetrical here, or I can get 1.2 gig by 35 meg here. Should I go with the gig symmetrical? It depends on the price and that kind of stuff. But again, most people, 1.2 gig by 35, that is very competitive if a cable operator can offer that. But the 2 gig symmetrical from Comcast gets them in the same kind of league as these guys that are doing these multiple symmetrical speeds. 5 gig, Comcast can do that probably over DOCSIS 4.0. They can maybe get up to 6 gig symmetrical. Cable Labs first came out and they started calling that 10G, which was supposed to be for 10 gig symmetrical. I think they realized that's probably not going to happen outside of the lab, maybe at best, maybe not even in the lab with this, depending on the technology today anyway, and maybe the spectrum that we have today. But certainly they could maybe get up to 5 or 6 gig symmetrical at some point if they needed to. But again, these kinds of speeds are not yet something that most residential, certainly any residential customer, except maybe just a rare one, would need. So that's not an issue for them. So again, they're trying to stay ahead of the pack and looking at the 2.5 package as a way to do that. And again, I expect to see prices coming down on that. So thanks for joining me today. If you're not subscribed to our channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button, ring the bell, and you'll be notified when I'm live. Click the like button if you liked it. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.